I was thinking about today, and I'm just going to have, mine's more primarily a welcome. I definitely want to thank Constance and the whole team. They did a fantastic job. Again, the sponsorships, because that's really comes down to is the sponsorships, and then the all the exhibitors, and it's phenomenal. It made me think about, again, I always have to come back to the uniqueness of Benicia. Think about it. This is a 150-year-old plus city with a 50-year-old business park that is the hotbed of new technology and enterprise for Solano County, if not the North Bay. That tells you a lot about the character of this community. It says a lot about, you know, who we are. This event is a grassroots effort. You know, it started with our people. The city has provided assistance, donated the building, quite a bit of staff time, but it was a grassroots effort generated by the community, the citizens and the business community. It really shows the entrepreneurial spirit that we have in this community. It not only makes us special in which to live and work, but it really talks about the fact that out of many, many years of development history of this community, and I always like the book, I forget the title of it, but it always says Benicia owes its character to a series of failures. And I like to say it a different way. I like to say we have a heck of a lot of darn good experience and how to survive. And we are still here because of that survival instinct and the characteristics of our citizens. And also, given the fact that we have this characteristics, we're becoming really, and if a lot of people don't know this, is that we really are very critical to the economic vitality of the North and East Bay. We are at a very critical juncture here. And while I really appreciate the efforts, we work very closely with the County of Solano, the EDC of Solano. I'm really excited that the county, they've been involved in economic development standpoint for some time, but you should go on their website. They're really ramping up their efforts in the area of economic development, and we work very closely with the other cities. But it's very easy many times to cross the bridge and head up county and kind of go past Benicia. And what we're trying to do through events such as this, collaborate with our citizenry to show just what a community of 28,000 can do in the areas of new technology and entrepreneurialism. And what it means is every part is important. This expo is also an excellent example of public-private collaboration. Not only does this showcase that Benicia has a strong, innovative culture within our business community, but the city of Benicia, and I really wanted to say, our city council has made economic development, of course our quality of life, but they define quality of life to include the three legs of the stool, which includes economic development, as a top priority. And they have indicated to us that they want us to support these kind of efforts. I would do it anyway, but the point is the council understands and pushes that. And that's why very few communities of 28,000 population, 200 population, have an economic development manager, let alone an economic development department. And so I have to say to the leadership of our council that's very important. So I'm going to kind of stop there. Mara, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything. I wanted you to know this face. This is the guy.
Before we do actually introduce our keynote speaker, I do want to thank all of you for coming and celebrating the second annual Benicia CleanTech Expo and having the interest and the understanding and the challenges that we have in transitioning to a more clean tech economy. So how did Benicia become the place that Brad talked about of innovation and enterprise and example to others? Because Benicia has it in its DNA. It started from our beginning. And it's the first city in California to have an industrial facility, the Pacific Steamship Company. It's the first in education, known as the Athens of the West. And by the way, it actually was also a place where artists congregated, and much of the work that the artists did can be seen up and down in historic places in California. And it is the first in Solano County to adopt a climate action plan and continues to lead the way in that area. So this plan, thanks. This climate action plan began with the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo students. And they were told by the city council when they were awarded the grant to develop that action plan, they were told by the city council, and I quote, "Show us the most innovative, imaginative, and bold ideas." It was a different question about whether we would adopt them or not, but we did ask them to go out and present to us what their thinking was. And there's nothing better in imagination than young minds who are grappling with their future and what they want to see in their future. And so they did, and today we have much to show for that climate action plan that they developed and that the council adopted. And it's a climate action plan that is about education and outreach, and very, very little of it is regulatory or mandated. That is an incredibly important concept, because I believe that's our future, is education. So, as Buckminster Fuller said, and I paraphrase, the first priority in designing a plan or a project is the full realization of individual potential in order to reach the realization for all individuals. This is true with Benicia as individuals, with this effort for the CleanTech Expo, as well as what I was referring to as our DNA and our history. The second principle that struck me as the perfect story to tell tonight is one which is what he wanted on his tombstone. Not the whole story, but the word. So let me read to you what was written about him in an interview. He said, "Something hit me very hard once, thinking about what one little person could do. He did say what one man could do, but I thought I would put person. So I just want to be clear that I inserted person. He said, think of the Queen Mary. The whole ship goes by, and then comes the rudder. And there's a tiny thing at the edge of the rudder called a trim tab. It's a miniature rudder. Just moving the little trim tab builds a low pressure that pulls the rudder around. Takes almost no effort at all. So, Bucky says, I said that the little individual can be a trim tab. You can be a trim tab. He was a trim tab. Society thinks it's going right by you, that it's left you all together. The big guys are out there. They're playing. But if you're doing dynamic things mentally, the fact is that you can just put your foot out like that, and the whole big ship of state is going to go in a different direction. Your trim tab. So he thought about steering the course of the spaceship Earth and all of humanity. I saw most people trying to turn the boat by pushing the bow around. I saw that by being all the way at the tail of the ship, by just kicking my foot to one side or the other, I could create the low pressure which would turn the whole ship. And Lordy knows we need to turn the whole ship. Now, Wendell Berry, my favorite poet and farmer and environmentalist, shared his position on how Americans and their fellow travelers on the globe will make the changes necessary to live sustainably on the one world we have. Change, he says, is going to come from people at the bottom, doing things differently. No great feat is going to happen to change all this. You're going to have to humble yourself to be willing to do it one little bit at a time. You can't make people do this. What you have to do is notice that they already are doing it. And that is exactly what the second annual Benicia CleanTech Expo is about. Starting from a general plan whose overarching goal is sustainability, to initiating a climate action plan, to reducing our carbon footprint and dependence on fossil fuels, to a plan of action for engaging the business community of makers, manufacturers, retailers, to help them reduce their energy cost so they can grow their businesses. And tonight and this weekend, you will have a chance to visit, absorb, and explore ways to build healthy homes with almost zero carbon footprint, to imagine clean transportation and realize that it's not the future, it's here, and now to share with others your discoveries. This makes our future less dependent on fossil fuels within our reality. This is a transition period for us in the city, in the state, and in this country. And the transition is for us as a community that has done well with a refinery, an oil refinery, and a community that must pivot deliberately toward alternative energy and clean tech activities, because that is the future. By seizing this need to transition now, we will land softly in the future of a sustainable economy. So please join me in thanking each individual who is here today and all those individuals who have gotten us here. Thank you very, very much.
I love being in this town. There is the Bradbury wallpaper place still here? God, I have that stuff in my... I know the air quality guys were on them for a bit, but I have a lot of that in my house. I love that place. I just like to go smell that place. And there's a lot of places in my town in Alameda, which is also a retired military town. So you come here and you feel a little sense of kinship. So it's such a beautiful place, and to see what you've been able to do here to transfer from, I guess, swords to plowshares is an inspiration for our town because we're struggling with that same idea. So in any event, it's great to be here. I do want to talk about Jim Sparing. You know, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission is that place. I won't ask for a show of hands because I know the number. If you poll it, about a third of people have ever even heard of it. So our great thing is to be the obscure yet powerful Metropolitan. And you know, Jim Sparing is the most effective commissioner. He's also the longest serving, and usually you start with the longest serving and it sounds like someone's retired, but that's like not Jim at all. Jim is by far the most effective commissioner that has served on MTC, and I've worked there for 23 years. If you want evidence of it, one of the things the commission does is we are the Bay Area Toll Authority, so if you have Fast Track, you pay us the money. If you have those little clipper cards for public transit, that goes through us too. But Jim Sparing has been able to essentially solve a great deal of the congestion in this county. I notice your economic development has you in the middle of the world, and that should be appropriate. But being here means you're really between two big economic centers, the Central Valley and the Bay Area. And a lot of folks kind of come through here but don't help you fix your congestion problems. I know you're doing a lot yourself, but the Bay Area Toll Authority through Jim is really the organization that has put all those funds to fix Highway 80, the 680 Cordelia interchange, the truck scales, the Jamison Canyon. All that stuff really is Jim focusing people like me in order to bring home some mobility for people like you, and he deserves a great deal of credit for it. The commission does all sorts of things. It's involved with climate, it's involved with planning. The most recent thing that the commission did was to adopt a long-range plan that I will eventually make a connection here. I think most normal people don't care about plans. I generally don't. But it's a long-range plan we update every 4 years. It had a land use component to it, which I'm going to get to, and it has a greenhouse gas component to it as well. This is one of my all-time favorite images. It's actually a real picture. This is not made up. You know, most people don't know what we're really focused on, which is trying to keep what our parents and grandparents gave us. And the generation that I kind of represent and deny that I'm part of, the baby boomers, have done a very poor job of being good stewards. And we're kind of leaving our future generations a little bit of an empty plate. Particularly when you have to sell trucks because the roads are so crappy, because we won't invest in them, is a pretty sad commentary. Often it's because of this. You know, it's always a great tale about the frog that gets slowly boiled and doesn't get out, which is kind of what happens to society. And the good thing about metaphors is that they're very effective communication devices. Often they're not true. I mean, the frog story's not true. The frog will get out, so don't worry about the frog. You know, one of the things the commission has been asked to do is to deal with this problem, which if you think we're going to be involved in climate change, and I guess the scientists have determined that since about 1860 or so, the seas have risen by 9 inches, and that it's accelerating in its pace. Significant transportation infrastructure that is fundamentally irreplaceable is going to be at risk. So there's this large thing that we have to focus on in our society, but often large things are done, as the mayor mentioned, with small acts, and not being on the front, but kind of being controlling from behind. One of the things I wanted to mention is kind of who we are. I think the Bay Area is a thing that people kind of identify with but don't quite know. But this is kind of the Bay Area in numbers. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of jobs. It's 9 counties, it's 101 cities, it's a lot of highway miles, it's a lot of stuff. A lot of people think it's that, which I think is a closer image for here. But really what the Bay Area is this. The Bay Area is part of a series of metropolitan areas that basically run the entire United States. We're only 12% of the land mass, right? But on the far end, you can see it's 95% of the public transit usage, 94% of the venture capital, air passengers, research and development, patents, knowledge economy, universities. What we are, what you are, even though it's 101 small cities, what we are really is a world-class metropolitan area that has very few peers around the globe, and we are a part of that. And I would just urge us all to be able to see ourselves as having this great infrastructure behind us that can support the things that you're doing here tonight. I have a few notes because I didn't really study very hard, but what the Commission does is a number of different things, but one of the things it does is that transportation has been green in the Bay Area for a long time. Unlike a lot of cities that tore down their train systems, San Francisco has one of the most green transportation systems in all of America. BART is electric. Much of the energy is done from renewables, not all, but a good portion of it. San Francisco has electric trolleys, which are buses, and electric streetcars as well. Much of our fundamental transportation system in the Bay Area is already the thing that most people wish they had in the future, but we get to have it now. The Bay Area has also been pretty generous with respect to new technology. This is a zero-emission bus. They run for AC Transit. Bay Area, we nominated ourselves in the state of California to be a demonstration of fuel cell buses. Instead of doing something else, we put our own money on the line to basically do science. A lot of people think, oh, so fuel cells, it's never going to work. Being that my brother is an engine engineer at Ford, you know I've heard that. Being that I grew up and my dad worked on the line at General Motors, you know I've heard it too. But the goal of this isn't to replace. The goal of this is to test. It's basically a research project out in the field in real life. So AC for about 10 years has been running these buses, and while they're expensive, it's demonstrated that the technology can work in the field in real life. This is a picture of Gavin Newsom. You know, he's a well-groomed man, so we wanted to make sure that we tested our dirty diesel retrofit program, which the Commission funded, and had him test it for us. We didn't want him to be dirty at all. But the Commission has funded a great deal of projects to retrofit existing buses with a transitional technology of basically capturing the dirty part of the emissions until the Detroits of the world could catch up with clean diesel technology, which has been a big challenge, but the Commission has stepped up with millions of dollars to do this. Now, I'm going to say a number of things about the Commission that I work for. I'm grateful to be there. It's been a real privilege for me to be there. But part of it is to look at the exhibitors and to inspire them that you have a place to go if you have good ideas, because our minds are open there. And we're not the kind of government that's afraid to fail. You know, I have to be in the newspaper explaining why something didn't work all the time. I mean, I had to explain the Bay Bridge for 15 years. I can do it, okay? And sometimes we're going to take some chances, and sometimes things aren't going to work, you know, but people need their government to be a little bit more flexible than, oh, we're afraid we might fail. So you have some innovators out here, but you got some in my organization as well. We're doing this with an electric bike program that's part of a $30 million commitment that we have in our plan with real money, not made up money, but real money, toward the types of projects that you're doing right here. The electric bikes that I see out here, we're going to try to run a bill next year to make sure that those bikes are allowed on Class 1 bike paths. They're currently kind of not, depending on what community you live in. So if you see some inspiration here, the goal is to say, if you've got a good idea, come talk to us because we're interested in them. We funded some electric city car shares in San Francisco and other places. Now look, if General Motors can't make an electric car work nationally, we don't have any, thing that we're going to be able to do it. But we can do some things. We can create an inspiration. We can make it work in some places. I think electric cars have a great future. I was pumping gas last night, thinking about tonight, at my local place in Alameda, and there was a Chevy Volt, which they make in my old hometown, and then there was a Fisker. And I'm thinking, what's a Fisker doing here? That's a fully electric car. So I think he was getting a Coke or something. But life has changed, and electric vehicles, not just bikes but cars, are a real thing. and I think it's a possibility for our nation. You know, the Bay Area is an innovator as well. What these are, you know, one dirty ship into the Bay is so dirty, it kind of makes up for all the good behavior people do. It's equivalent to just thousands of miles of the worst vehicle emissions in the world, these bunker oil freighters that come through. It's really a tragedy. If you live in Alameda like I do, you can just see it. So what we did is help the Port of Oakland fund a dockside electric plug-in thing so they could turn the damn things off. They do it for trains too in San Francisco, and we funded that as well. So innovative electric technology is happening around the Bay. And one reason I, again, bring it up is not to brag on the place I work, is to give you a sense that often people on the edge, the frontier, are feeling like, you know, they're on the edge and they're on the frontier and not really part of the community writ large. And the fact of the matter is that you are. That the kind of technology and the kind of things you're doing isn't something that's on the sidelines. It's happening every day, and places like my organization know about it, and we want to make sure that we're here to help you. This is a picture of Caltrain. We're going to electrify that line with the high-speed rail money that came in over the past, you know, that was a big saga as well, but the Bay Area is going to get an electrified train as a result. I think this is interesting. This is called cold-in-place recycled street paving. So instead of pulling up all the stuff and hauling it someplace and burning a bunch of emissions to go get there, they have a technology now where they can do it right in place. They can tear up the road, they can put it into this, looks like a train, really it does, on wheels, and out the other end comes a brand new road. We funded this in Sonoma County. We're going to see if it works. If it doesn't work, I get to explain to the press why we wasted the public's money. But I think the point is that we want to see if things can work. And sometimes paying 10% more is better than not. And I think that's the kind of point that we can make here. We also do things for streets and kids to get to school. We're funding a program in Solano County to do this. But this is the challenge that I want to leave you with today. I don't want to speak too long. And I can answer any questions if you want to know why the Bay Bridge costs so damn much too. But the one challenge that is before us that I want to just kind of impress you with is this. If you're a good citizen and you go buy a low emissions vehicle, either a gasoline car that gets great mileage or a Prius or whatever it is you wish to do, and you drive the average commute that people drive in the Bay Area to work, you might feel pretty good about yourself. And you may make fun of your neighbor who goes out and buys a big fat SUV and takes it to the grocery store, but works in the same city. The fact of the matter is that the guy with the big SUV is doing a lot more for the environment than you are. And it's just the truth. Where we're really lacking here is housing in the Bay Area. People have to travel a long way to work. We in my business are funding to the tune of billions of dollars, widening of highways, BART extensions, capital corridor, all sorts of things, because we have a housing policy that makes no sense. And it's a huge problem on the emissions side. It is a huge problem. The way we're doing this is very harmful for the environment, and it's very expensive socially to do it. So I think the one challenge I would leave, I know there's some policymakers here, and nothing will get you quickly unelected been talking about housing, is we got to come to Jesus with housing. Living in a society where people have to live 30 minutes away from where they work is a guaranteed problem when it comes to sustainability and greenhouse gases, and also taking a lot of time away from your family. So the commission that I work for is trying to get our hands around this in a meaningful way. And I guess I'll leave you with one last thought here. In my little town of Alameda, they recently had a big congestion problem, and everyone didn't know what to do about it. It was hard to get a place to park, and the streets were really busy. And the reason was because an old historic theater was rehabbed and reopened with the help of the city. And great restaurants opened up, and a cool place to get wine opened up. Kids are all getting ice cream, and people complain because they don't have a place to park. But when you get deep down into that complaint, it's really not a complaint at all. It's a sign that they're so happy to be in the town that they live in. It's a sign that they like the sense that the town is vibrant. Compare that congestion to what people have to do sitting on the freeway to travel a long distance. That's the kind of congestion that hurts. So not all congestion is the same. And I think this is the challenge that we all have to face for our future. So I'll leave you with my friend the frog, and thank you for your attention.